In this, the first of our mini tutorials on the immune system, we're just going to think about some very general aspects of immune system function. And I'm going to start off by considering this seesaw. And this is going to help us think a little bit about the evolution of the immune system itself. So on the seesaw, we have got at one end pathogens. So, of course, whenever we talk about the immune system, people typically think about pathogens, these being, of course, disease-causing microorganisms. So there has been, throughout our evolutionary history, a great deal of pressure from infectious agents, whether they be bacteria, viruses or fungi. And these organisms are basically trying to maximise their own survival, maximise their own fitness, and they use other organisms as a vessel for growth. You know, if you think about bacterial infection, bacteria are using your skin or your other tissues to grow in, and they're using them for their own reproduction as well. So we've got pathogens on the one side, and of course on the other side of the seesaw, trying to counteract the effect of pathogens, we have immunity. Now, if you think about this, generally the power, the strength of the immune system is pretty well matched to the virulence of the pathogens which that particular individual is accustomed to in their environment. You can imagine if the seesaw swung in the direction of pathogens, then the immune system would be very rapidly overtaken. So if pathogens became dominant, then the immune system would not be able to cope and the individual organism would die from infection. However, you can imagine also that if the immune system became excessively good at its job, then we would be wasting a lot of resources within the body on this excessively active immune system, which would mean that other parts of the body's economy would suffer. And that's not the kind of thing which evolution tends to allow. Evolution has balanced our immune systems to work in harmony with the pathogens which are in our environment. And if we consider immunity from an evolutionary point of view, of course there is a great deal of variation within the function of the immune system between individuals and between populations. And this variation, of course, will help if a novel pathogen arises, and it will go some way to ensuring the continuity of the species. Now, before we move on, I just want you to just think a bit more about these pathogens that we've described. Now, we've thought about the immune system solely in its interaction with microorganisms in the environment. But I want you to also consider that the immune system has other roles as well. So, for example, the immune system has an essential role in ensuring that cancer cells in the body are removed. So we can think of cancer cells as a type of pathogen, if you like, and the immune system has specific cells whose job is to make sure that the cells have not become cancerous. Those cells will be killed. If that system breaks down, then of course cancer will develop as a disease. Additionally, we also know that immune cells, particularly phagocytes, have a role in development. So if in development, for example, cells are programmed to die, then cells of the immune system come along and remove that cellular debris after a cell has died. In addition to this, we also now know that there is a very close interrelationship between the immune system and the nervous system. And this is becoming increasingly clear from research which is going on right at this moment. Now let's have a think about some of the individual components of the immune system. So if we draw a simple spider diagram, and we put immunity in the middle here, essentially immunity we can think of as having two different arms to it, so to speak. We have got so-called innate immunity, and we have got what's called adaptive immunity. And these have got quite different cells and molecules working within them, and they have quite different roles. Typically, the innate immune response occurs very early in an infectious process, and the components of the innate immune system are the first components which try to get rid of the pathogen. Whereas the adaptive immune response kicks in much later, some days later frequently, and that's involved in finishing the job, so to speak, and trying to make sure that if the pathogen is changing, then the immune system can keep up with that change. Now, both the innate and the adaptive immune systems have two separate arms to them. So we have a cellular component of the innate immune system, and we have what's called a humoral component of the innate immune system. Now, the difference being, of course, the cellular component is made up of individual cells, whereas what we mean by the humoral component is these are macromolecules which are involved in clearing pathogens. So whenever we talk about humoral immunity, we're talking about macromolecules, for example, antibodies, which are involved in clearing pathogens from the body. Likewise, the adaptive immune system has got a cellular component and a humoral component, but these components are, of course, different from the innate immune system. Now, the cellular components of the innate immune system include cells which you should already be familiar with, and those are the phagocytes, and these include cell types such as macrophages, which basically take up foreign pathogenic material and destroy it, so that they're fairly indiscriminate. If they recognise something which is foreign, they will ingest it and destroy it. Another type of cell in the innate immune system is called the natural killer cell, the NK cell. And NK cells have a number of interesting roles, one of which is to survey the body for cancer cells. So NK cells are involved in the removal of cancerous cells in the body. If we think about the humoral aspect of innate immunity, we've got molecules such as lysozyme. This is typically found in saliva, lysozyme. Interestingly, it was discovered by Alexander Fleming, lysozyme. And what lysozyme is an enzyme which, once again, fairly indiscriminately chews up pathogenic material. In addition, the humoral side of the innate immune response contains molecules called complement, and we're going to talk a bit more about complement later on. So complement is part of the humoral immune response. Considering the adaptive immune system, the two major cell types found in the adaptive immune system are B cells, which, as you might know, make antibodies, and T cells, which facilitate that process amongst many other functions. And of course, the major humoral effector in the adaptive immune system is the antibody. Okay. So that's the end of our very simple summary of the immune system. And now we're going to go on to consider some more advanced aspects of immune system function.